Welcome back to another installment of our Helpful Hints. Should be number 17. Today, we're going to talk about review strategies that can be engaging to students. And we're going to utilize some lead forward documents and other sources. But we are in what they call testing season. So the focus now is really on trying to gauge and see where students are and work from there to get them ready for the test. So Lead Forward has this document that is called a strategies playlist, and it is a very helpful document. So people need to make sure that they utilize this. So we're going to use some of these strategies as listed here. And I kind of created a choice board for the teachers, just so because each one of these is linked to one of the slides. But I have about 10 um, strategies that I'm gonna use. I only have spot for 9. I didn't want to create anything else. So, but this is my choice board I'm utilizing because guess what? Choice board is one of the strategies. But so the first one we're gonna hit is my do or die. I think I did a video about frayer models before because I love frayer models. I think they are great sources. Now, frayer models are great for introducing a concept or in the middle of instruction, but it can also be used. Remember, this is testing season. It can also be used after as a kind of like of a error analysis in a matter for error analysis. So let me show you an example of what I mean. So this is a frayer model, and let's just say you instead of having to keep creating things, because I know toward this time you're exhausted, you're probably running out of resources, and maybe you don't have enough of a depth of a resources where you can keep getting problems. So don't come up and create new problems. Let's just say you've already given this problem to a student and they didn't do successful. They weren't successful on it. They didn't get it right. So what you can do is you can use a frayer model to kind of guide them through an error analysis. So here's my frayer model. They have to identify, read the problem, figure out one of these words that they got, that a keyword here that will help them to answer this. So it's recall basically. So they'll put that word in G2 stage, they put it here, and they fill out this chart. Remember, they've already gotten this question wrong. So once they go through this chart, they're filling out the chart, hopefully more stuff will trigger and it'll lend them toward what the correct answer is. So now after they've done this, you can ask this question: why was your answer incorrect? And what is the correct answer now? So they can be able to justify it based on this information. So you're using a frayer model not as a precursor nor in the middle of instruction. It's really at the end to try to kind of correct misconceptions and then allow the student to correct their misconceptions versus you actually having to do it. So that's a frayer model. So another one is a 3-2-1 review activity, and we're going to use it in conjunction with a Venn diagram. Once again, Venn diagrams are great graphic organizers to use for either precursor to the instruction, during the instruction, after the instruction, but it's sometimes depending on the quality of what the student is producing and the expectations of the teacher, it's only surface level. So you can take a frayer model and you can kind of explore more, add the 3-2-1 in there to kind of get them to really focus on stuff. So here's an example of that. So I pulled some stuff from the released English 2 test for EOC, and it had two things. It had a story and it had a poem. And one of the questions required them to actually compare, a number of the questions actually was having them compare and contrast the poem to the story. So instead of actually going to those questions right now and giving it to the student, I want to pull those questions, and I know I'm going to have those questions as my exit ticket. So instead of me doing an error analysis here, what I'm going to do is I'm trying to build a skill for students to actually determine how to approach answering the question. So I'm trying to build a critical thinking skills here. So I'm going to guide them. And by the end of this activity, they should be able to look at those 3 questions and answer them. So I'm going to use those 3 questions. It was actually 4 questions, but I only took 3 of them. But it's 4 questions dealing with these two literary works, and I'm going to have them as my exit ticket. And I'm just kind of backtracking to have my activity prep them for that. So in this instance, it's a poem and it's a story. They're going to name three differences. They're going to name two ways in which they're whatever, and then they're going to name one. So it's just a 3, 2, 1. So they've taken these two literary works. We're putting the information in the Venn diagram so it can kind of give them a graphical way of organizing the information. And now, after they've done this, they should be able to answer those three to four questions. Okay. So there's two examples: frayer model and 3, 2, 1 with the Venn diagram. Now I love this, Jill. I put it on every time I put this concept. Okay, so pick up the slip up. This is another one from Lead Forward. Pick up the slip up is just simply you give them a term and you give them three different visuals or three different things. Two of them are fit the term or relate to the term. One of them it does not. So it's kind of like one of these things is not like the other in a sense, but I'm giving you the term. So in this instance, it's diffusion. So one of these things doesn't correlate, and it's endocytosis. In case you didn't know, that's not passive. Anyway, so and you have to follow this up with some kind of written statement from the student. In this case, once they figure it out, they're going to have to actually give. You have a stem here. Visual number this or visual letter this is the slip up because I will stress to you, make sure they are using vocabulary. So create a rubric that requires the grade comes from the usage of them making a claim, supporting a claim, and then coming up with a rationale where they're using the vocabulary words. Because remember, this is crunch time. Now here's one that's dealing with English. I wanted to make sure I got some English stuff in here. So same thing, same concept, personification. Which one of these things is not personification? You have to make sure you make a claim, justify the claim in a written form. Okay. Let's pick up the slip up. Our one out is similar to pick up the slip up. Obviously, one of them doesn't belong. So in this case, I have some molecules. Now, there's two ways you can approach this. You can approach it where you don't give any kind of parameters and you just have four different things there and let them just tap into critical thinking and they can just come up with anything. Like in this case, I haven't told them anything. I'm not saying specifying you need to make sure that they're all this, that. No, they can go and approach it from, well, one of them doesn't end in oats. One of them looks like it has two monomers to it. They really, the sky is the limit here. So you're going to have all kinds of answers. But the key thing is they have to make sure they make a claim, justify it, and use vocabulary in their justification. Now here, I've taken it back a little bit and I've scaled it and now I'm putting parameters on it. Let's assume that they've already read these stories. Now I'm saying, now you're going to choose an odd one out, but you're going to base it off of certain one of the elements of a story. So either it's going to be based on audience, the author's purpose, a setting, plot, characters, problem. So I'm giving them the parameters. I don't care which one you choose, but it has to be dealing with the story elements. It's different. This one is the odd man out because of this. Remember, they have to be able to make a claim, support their claim with evidence, and they have to make sure that they're using a lot of vocabulary, okay? So, rock and roll. Rock and roll, I use some math problems for this. Rock and roll is just this. You have some dice. The way we're going to approach it here is this is going to be a way of, it's a concept that they struggle with. They're struggling with this concept, and I want to make sure that I walk them through all the things that has to be involved when they're kind of approaching the question. So in this case, I'm taking this mathematical question and I'm pairing them off or in groups or whatever. And as they roll the dice, whoever rolls the dice is going to have to answer that respective question. Maybe they're going to state the big concept. So in this case, it's dealing with functions and maybe, so they're going to end up doing it. And it kind of gives them, you can do this before they actually answer the question, or you can do it as an error analysis also. But this is a great tool to use, just guiding students in how to approach critically thinking and answering problems. I chose another math question for it also. I love this kind of math questions because because math questions often have multiple steps. You have to know this because everything is scaffolded. So it's a great way of reviewing what you know. Okay, claim evidence reasoning. If you've been listening to me, I've been saying they have to make a claim. They have to state their supported with some evidence. Claim evidence reasoning should be embedded in every activity you do. All it does is it requires them to make a claim, get off the fence, declare something, provide evidence that supports that claim, and then rewriting it with a rationale that makes sense and uses vocabulary. So if this is chemistry and it's dealing with mole concept, I can do this, put this claim evidence reasoning before they actually explore moles, or I can do this while they're exploring moles or after moles, because I want to make sure that they understand that these arrows are telling you what to do. So I want to make sure that they understand the skill that's going in, that has been applied here on how to convert from mass to moles to represented particles. So this is a good way of kind of making them focus on, if it's a graphic, focus on the graphic. Now you don't always have to use graphics. And here I have this reading, this English 1 thing. And it asks the question, what does this quotation reveal about the narrator's conflict? So they have to make a claim. They have to provide evidence that supports their claim, and they have to come up with a reasoning. And that reasoning should lend to the answer here. So you can use this even with things that's not a graphic. Okay, we've covered a lot of them so far. I have a few more left though. So, here's another version of claim evidence reasoning. It's the same concept though. Writing the question in, making the claim, providing evidence and reasoning. Okay. Now, factor field. I like factor field because once again, it requires them to make a claim. Do you think it's correct or do you think it's not? I like it when you give a student the answer and you have to make them tell you whether or not it's the answer. So here's something that you can do, and you find this in it's an angle chart. It's a question, and simply, is this a right triangle? And I'm gonna give you the size, and you got to tell me whether or not you think this is a right triangle. But more importantly, you have to prove it. So this is an example of factor fib. So if it is a right triangle, you have to be able to justify or prove it that it is. And if it's not a right triangle, you still have to be able to prove it. But I like anything that's going to make a person make a claim, because most people don't like getting answers wrong. And so once they make the claim, they have a little bit more ownership and buy-in to the problem. So another version is this. Here I have, I'm going to give you the problem. And I'm going to give you the answer. So it's either I'm going to give you the answer, or I may get someone else's answer this problem in the class. And now we're trying to see, is this true or is this false? And so they have to go through the same process. If it is true, prove it. If it's not true, prove it. Simple. Choice boards. I just gave you the whole thing is kind of set up as a choice board. But in this case, I took about 9 questions dealing with a concept. These are all star release questions or some variation to a star release question. And I will have them either attack it, I'll put the answer there, but they either answer it in horizontally, vertically, they can do diagonally. Now, if they do it horizontally, vertically, and I have a 3 by 3, then that means they only answer 3 questions. But what if I said, I want you to have 1 row done, and I want you to have two of these done. So the first 3 at the top, you're doing a horizontal. Well, I also want you to either do match one of these boxes and do 2 more to make another line. So then I have a total of 5. So I can have it where it's a multiple number of questions that they have to answer, not just 3. But be strategic in how you organize it. You typically organize the easier ones maybe at the top. You have to differentiate the organization of it. Okay, 2 more. Tabletop tweet. Tabletop tweet just kind of goes back to kind of utilizing some of the current trends and stuff with the social media. And what it does is it requires a person to kind of explain what's happening, kind of use a visual graphic. You notice most of these have a graphic attached to it, and then kind of come up with a key term as a hashtag, and then you're going to share out. This is where you have the opportunity to have students share their answers and stuff. So in this case, I'm not inventing anything. I have a problem. We'll start with this problem. Either they've already answered it or they're in the process of answering it. And then I'll have them. So I'll take a problem that they've already done or are about to do, and then I will have them basically explain what's happening in this. What is this dealing with? I like this cause and effect one because it really can. You can kind of get an overarching. What is this dealing with? Something dealing with Cuba, something dealing with Guam, whatever. Sketch what you think is happening here, and then kind of come up with some hashtags about what was going on during that particular conflict. And then they should be able to, as they progress through it, either answer the question or confirm that their answer was correct or incorrect. That's tabletop tweeting. Last but not least is kind of a hodgepodge. It's called Total Recall. I like the movie Total Recall. I'm an 80s, 90s child. Total Recall looks similar to a frayer model, but what it does is it picks a concept, it makes you identify all what kind of vocabulary is associated to that concept, and then create some visuals. Once again, it's a visual because non-linguistic representation helps to link, solidify, or make connections to new information, from new information to old information. Which is the next thing, was to connect. So you create this visual, connect it to new content with something you already know, and then the tabletop tweet is basically kind of what we just did before, where either hashtag or just do a summary in 140 characters or less. So in this case, if I wanted to, I can do this, like I said, before they answer the question or after they answer the question as error analysis. What's the concept here? It is the Cold War. What are all the vocabulary words that are associated with Cold War? What are some graphics that you can create that's associated with the Cold War? Make the connection. How does it relate to whatever? Look at the sequence, and then 140 characters or less. Explain what's going on. So these are somewhat. Oh, there's one more. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I see. I think I wonder. My camera's off. I see that. I think I wonder is a great tool for visuals. So, and it helps people to differentiate between what you see and what you infer. So I see, I think, I wonder. The first thing you do is you only ask them, what do you see? And as they share their answers, you do not allow them to say anything about what they think or what they infer. That's not what you're asking them for. Because what it does is it helps them to focus in on what's given to them. If the students are struggling with reading graphs, tables, or looking at or understanding and navigating around graphics, visuals, then this is the greatest tool to build the skill of actually analyzing a graphic. Only by the first one, only tell me what you see. And then once they tell you what to see, you can slowly start introducing inferences. What do you think? Let them tell you what they think. And what do you wonder? And from there, you should be able to answer the question. Okay. And I believe that is the last one. So let me go back. I presented you with 10 or 11. I thought it was 10. Different strategies. Oh, yeah, I left one off. I see. I think I wonder. Okay. Anyway, 11 different strategies that you can use during a review time that doesn't require you to come up with something different. Whatever the questions you're administering, you're giving the students, because you should be giving them a lot of questions right now. They should be used to questions. How are they going to be assessed on the exam? Just how you deal with those questions need to be engaging. So what they do with those questions should be engaging. How they analyze their responses, how they approach it. That's where you can differentiate and bring your engagement into the class. I hope this helped. I spent a lot of time working on this, and I love this because it's a simple tweak that can help improve engagement and help your students really get into the groove for review and for their test. Okay, hope that helps.